Hi again, I'm Daniel,
And I'm Jamie.
and we're here to talk about triggers. And we're not talking about guns, we're talking about emotional triggers. So I want to start with kind of describing, in my opinion, what the definition of a trigger is. We've had some, couple, couple more.
Yeah.
But a trigger to me is having an emotional response on a current situation that might look and smell like something that happened in the past. So we're carrying an emotional reminder, recurrence that we just bring forward immediately based on something that may not have anything to do with what we are going through today.
Well, our emotions stay in our bodies. Like they unresolved emotions. Let's say I was traumatized in the past. I mean, I grew up in an abusive home, like all of that stuff. So let's say there's a wound that I haven't healed from yet. Um, there's some that I think that I've healed from, but then being in a relationship
I
has
dig them back up.
they've been brought back up, even though I thought I had already healed from them before. So it's basically that we hold on to these wounds, these triggers, these anything that we've had an issue with in the past. If somebody has hurt us, or if we've been through anything, so we that's negative, we'll hold on to those emotions, and we don't really know they're there. They're buried, or they're bandaged up, and we think we're good, and then something will happen in like, say something would happen in our current relationship that will like rip the band-aid off of that wound that happened to me as a child, a teenager, in a past relationship, whatever, and then it'll trigger me, and I won't know what's wrong. Like, I'll be upset, I'll be hurt, I may feel like abandoned or rejected, I may feel jealous, anything like that. And it's not necessarily what Daniel has done, but something that he did do brought up an old wound that I didn't even know was there. And so there's that trigger.
So it's not that the other person did the same thing that happened in the past, but there's a resemblance. There's again, it's a trigger. It's like a trap door. We may not know what we did, and all of a sudden we get a reaction that doesn't balance out with the same level of severity. Now, I'm the cool one in the relationship, always calm and never have. I just have my act together. Except I have triggers too, and Jamie's experienced those, and they've been pretty ugly. Um, um, so we want to talk a little bit about. It takes a lot of tenacity. It takes a lot of faith, and it takes understanding your vision and your calling. Because we've had scenarios where we thought, "Oh, this is it.
Yeah.
We're done." And then we realize, wait a minute, we have a calling. And we know we've had a calling. This relationship was ordained by God. Um, and so we remind ourselves. I think of the verse in Revelation, remember the height from which you have fallen and do the things you did at first. So some of the things that helps me is to remember, wait a minute, there are certain times in our relationship that were glaringly ordained that help me to stop questioning what's going on right now. And I carry burdens. Jamie carries burdens. What might trigger her one day may not trigger her the next day. What might trigger me one day may not trigger me the next day. One thing I found for me, I'm an introvert. Jamie thinks she's an introvert. Uh, that's an inside joke. Um, but if I get too much input, say we have kind of a heavy discussion and we have another one the next day, and I don't get time to re-energize, then my battery just keeps going down, and then I don't have the emotional strength to keep my head clear and understand the context and be able to press through. I react, And that's because my battery's empty, not because bad things happen, but because of my own personality. And then I've come from abuse. In many ways, I've experienced PTSD, and very recently had basically a flash of the same thing happen, that PTSD where I shut down. And was it something specific that Jamie did? Not really. It just looked and smelled like something that may have happened in the past, and so I had a reaction that I had in the past because of the trigger.
And one thing that has helped us is we have to be able to realize that we're not rationally thinking when we're triggered. When one of us is triggered, we're trying to. That's one of our go-tos. Something that we know we have to understand and give that person grace and mercy and be patient and understanding, and know that we didn't do anything to cause that. I mean,
it's a passive response. They didn't intentionally do something, but something was done.
Right.
Because we're basing it on something we've referenced in a different era.
Right. And one thing that you said is how we know that our relationship is ordained. That has really gotten me through so much, because there has been times when I thought, I'm done. Like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to stay.
You did that with me?
I seriously was planning on, like, how am I got to, like, end this relationship. I don't want to do this anymore. And I had to stop and realize, the Father didn't bring us this far to only bring us this far. He's not going to just stop. He's still here with us. He's still walking us through. And it gave me the strength to keep going and to keep, walking with Daniel, and it's not easy. Like, when these triggers happen, it's really difficult to stay strong and to push through. And when, I remember the last trigger, like, I knew that I had to fight for both of us, because he didn't have it in him to fight because he was shutting down. And I've been there when I've shut down, and he's been the one that's had to pull us both through. And it's just not easy. It's not easy at all. But another thing that I did want to mention was the difference between triggers and red flags, because a lot of people will see this kind of behavior and they think that this is a red flag, and they're like, I'm done, I'm out of here, I gotta go. Like, I don't want to stay, because if this is the way this relationship is going to be, I don't want any part of it. And so they're thinking that it's a red flag when it's really just a trigger. So when these triggers happen, though, I guess it would be a red flag if we weren't willing to push through and work together as a couple. Right, if we weren't willing to...
There's similarities, except, one of the things that Jamie's mentioned, and I've asked Jamie when she questioned me as our relationship began, is you have to interpret things through my character. Yeah. Who am I?
About the truth.
Yeah, it's not always what I do, because sometimes I mess up. But if she can remember who I am, what is my character, that lasts. I may have a bad day, I may have a bad week, but my character is the same. So when we're talking about red flags, that's where it differs, because a red flag is who I am versus a trigger is something that happened in the past. My character is constant. So if my life is full of triggers, for Jamie, then she should run. If we have some great times and I'm healing from past wounds, then my triggers will show their ugly head. We've had discussions in the past about, should people get in relationships if they're not fully healed? Well, sometimes you don't fully heal until you have the opportunities to come together like this. On the other hand, we've seen people in the groups who have come together so fast, irrationally fast, and then have terrible breakups. Mm-hmm. So we've invested in each other. We haven't jumped through things too quickly. We have the promises that the Father's given us. We've had the great groundbreaking events that have happened in our relationship that are, it's like a stake in the ground, and we know that's going to hold us fast.
Right.
And so we know that we're going to get through this. It's not going to be easy.
No.
And there's not always a surefire way. Everybody's different. Because I'm an introvert, I need to spend some time alone. I need to re-energize in quietness, literally audible quietness. But there's a danger is that we go off into darkness sometimes if we're not careful. So we need to understand if a woman chases the man trying to get something out of him that he doesn't have anything to give to speak, because like I remember the last time I was triggered, it's like I could barely speak a couple words. It's like it was just too painful. Not because of something Jamie did. She was not a bad person. She didn't do bad things. I was living, and basically it was like a flashback of a PTSD event for me. And so it took me days to recharge, and it was hell for Jamie. It was hell, and I appreciated the time she spent on her knees for me. And she knew I was worth it. She knew I was worth the time, and she knew that the calling the Father had given was true, and that kept her pressing on when I didn't have the strength to press on.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was talking about, is knowing that we have to fight for each other, because it's times like that that you have to pick up your sword and walk on the battlefield and fight, and you pray and you fast, and you don't relent, because you know that the Father is working things out, and this isn't just a this is just a stopping place, basically. Like,
it's a pause.
Triggered, you rip the Band-Aid off, and you have some time to process and to figure this out, to recognize that it's a trigger, because sometimes it's hard to realize if this is a trigger. Like, am I being triggered, or did he really just piss me off? You have to figure that out. Yeah. And so that takes time of processing that. And most of the time when we're processing, we don't talk to each other. We have that time by ourselves. But you kind of learn as you go to, what's needed to walk through those. Like, what do I need? He's learning what I need. I'm learning what he needs. That, I think, personally, I believe that's my responsibility, to know what he needs in that situation, and then to do it. So if he needs quiet time, sometimes he just wants me to sit next to him and not say a word, then that's what I'm going to do. If he needs his space and he needs quiet time, he just wants to chill and veg by himself, then I'm going to go do something else. I'm not going to, intrude on that space. So I believe that it's important that I learn what he needs, and know that the most important thing that I can do is pray and cover him, and give him that space he needs to. It's not just walking through a trigger, it's healing. And it's knowing that once you're triggered and you realize what's happened, you have to put the work in to heal from that wound. You can't just let it sit or fester or sweep it under the carpet. It took us almost a week last time after this trigger to talk about it. So because he didn't have the energy to talk about it before, so I gave him his space, but then the time came and we sat down, we talked about it, and it was excellent. It was good, and we both grew and we learned more about each other, which will help us the next time, because there will be a next time.
It's your turn.
I know, right? It's my turn. Yeah, so it's just an ongoing thing, because healing is ongoing. Yes. We never arrive. Healing will continue till the day Yeshua returns. The important thing is that you fight, and that you don't give up on the relationship, on the person individually, and you keep pushing through.
Now, there's another aspect to all of this that really complicates things. When I'm triggered and I become reclusive, then that triggers Jamie because of fear of abandonment, and she doesn't know. So my response to my trigger creates a trigger for her.
Yeah.
And so we have to, and there are times where, it's great. I'm the strong one, and I help her out of hers. Times where she's the strong one, she helps me out of mine. But then there's times when my trigger triggers her trigger, and it's like we're both a mess.
Yep.
And that's not pretty.
Yeah.
And people will have the tendency to say this won't work. And that's where you have to go back and look at the stake in the ground. Yeah. Is it in the ground? Is it a true stake? Is it truth? And Jamie talked about the belt of truth, and that's an issue I talk about a lot, is what is the truth of the matter? She can say, I don't know what I did, but I know he's hurting. Mm-hmm. And Jamie she feels terrible and may want to run. And what I actually need from Jamie is, like she mentioned before, I want her to come sit next to me. I want her not to say a word, not give me an expectation, just sit next to me, put her hand on my hand, and just be. And that brings me healing. That brings me the energy that I need to charge up so that I can press on. And when she leaves, then I'm codependent. I worry about what I've done to her, how this reaction of mine has had adverse reactions to her. So that makes it very difficult for both of us because we're reacting to the other's reaction.
Yeah, I think that's actually happened a lot where we've triggered each other, mm-hmm. and it makes it really difficult to come back and recover from that. It's not easy. But I mean, and it takes time. Like mm-hmm. we were friends 10, 11 months, mm-hmm. and then we've been together for a year, almost a year. So we're talking almost 2 years of knowing each other, and we're still learning.
A lot.
I mean, it's not easy, and mm-hmm. it takes time learning about each other, and but that's why that belt of truth is so important, mm-hmm. because I can just stop and take a step back and say, okay, I don't know if I really just said something to piss him off and he doesn't want to talk to me, or if he's triggered. And sometimes I'll know. Sometimes I'll just say, okay, wait a minute. And I'll just replay things in my mind. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. I know he's triggered. Mm-hmm. And then I can figure out what triggered him, why he's triggered, and I know he just needs some time. Mm-hmm. And then I'm okay. But sometimes his trigger does trigger me. So I stop and I put that belt of truth on, and I realize, okay, Daniel's a man of character. He's a godly man. He walks in righteousness as much as possible. He walks in integrity and honor, and he treats me well. And so I know that I can put that belt of truth on and realize that I have to be patient walking through that trigger. And the last time was really difficult. Just, each day waiting and waiting and waiting until we got through it. Yeah. And it is not easy. It's not easy at all. But you have to be able to realize that your relationship is worth it. Yeah. That the good outweighs the bad, and we have way more good times at times, but still, those triggers suck. They're really difficult, right. Not easy at all. And seriously, if someone told me that this was what a relationship was a year ago, I don't know. It's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy at all, but it's worth it.
Yes,
it is. Yeah. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, we just have to maintain hope. One thing I wanted to bring up is that, like Jamie said, it took a week for us to talk about it. And one person sometimes is going to want to drill in right now, what's going on? You need to talk about this. And you should not sweep it under the rug. But you do need to give the appropriate time, or whatever the case may be, because everyone is different, to be able to process it in the right time when there's enough objectivity and enough strength to be able to do that. I know when we were at a point where Jamie we were okay, but I hadn't recharged. And Jamie had said, "We're going to need to talk about this." And she said she saw the panic in my eyes. It's like the panic was there. It's like I knew that this would just throw me deep again. And so we didn't. And like a day
Well,
or
and
two
I didn't
later,
want to talk about it.
yeah,
I just
the
wanted
shoot-
to
yeah.
make sure we were on the same page.
Yeah.
This needs to be talked about.
Yes.
We don't have to do it now,
Right.
but we need to talk about it. And then you said, we're talking about it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it. We'll talk about it later. I just want to make sure that we're going to talk
Yeah.
about it.
So that's important in a relationship, is you don't just keep sweeping things. Time heals all wounds. No, time buries things until they come up later.
Yep.
So you really do want to make sure that it doesn't have to be right now. It doesn't have to be today, tomorrow, or the next day, but you do need to bring it up. It does need to get resolved and discussed, and that's the only way you can remove the negative. Because if you have a relationship that always you have an issue here and you come down here, then you have and you don't resolve it, and you have another issue here and it comes down, now you're here, your relationship is here, and you don't spend time to resolve it. You develop a new status quo, and you can have some happy times, but you really do need to make sure that issues are addressed when both of you could be objective and caring and responsive in that situation.
Yeah, it has to be a right environment where you're
Mhm.
both ready, you're both prepared emotionally, mentally. We have the energy, the strength. You have the time to
Mhm.
focus on each other, and it's a safe environment
Mhm.
because there's going to be a lot of there's more vulnerability that's going to come up in that conversation when you start talking about triggers and what I said and how you responded and you know, just all of that. It's got to be a safe environment.
And you know, I just want to assure you, this has kind of been a little bit of doom and gloom, but we really do have a very nice relationship.
We do. That's why we're still together.
Yes, we laugh.
Yeah.
We take care of each other in many ways, and it's a blessing. Um, so it's not doom and gloom. There are bad times in relationships, and those don't characterize a relationship. Those are just times. So
Well, honestly, though, those times strengthen our relationship.
Mm.
When we go through triggers and we have things like that, we build a stronger foundation so that the next time we go, when we resolve it, so next time we go through it, we've got more of a basis to a foundation to stand on and say, you know, we've been through this before. This is what got me through last time. Was I knew it was going to be okay. As hard as it was, I knew that I just had to be patient and walk through it because we've been here before.
Right.
And we got through it then, we're going to get through it now. So it just builds a relationship. It strengthens us and makes us better.
And as we talk about it, so Jamie knows, don't stay away from me, just sit next to me. She knows, oh, if she thinks I need to give him space, that's not what I need. I need her to sit and be with me. And that shows acceptance. I accept him, and I'm not going to walk away. And I can, well, the first time she came to visit me, it was through a rough time that we had, and I basically told her to shut up and sit down after we had a little bit of a talk. But the idea is that, yes, when my soul is wounded, it doesn't have energy. That's just my way. And so as you sit with me, then I just start to charge. But when you're asking and expecting and things like that, then that just takes it out of me. And now when I'm strong and charged, then ask away, and I'm good with that. But there's just a point where it is too much.
Well, and for me, like when you trigger me, I hide. Like I don't want to talk about it. You piss me off. Like get away from me, and I don't want to talk about it. But I've realized that, and it's. I think over time it's been less and less time. But I'm at the point now where I told him last time, I was like, I want you to pull me out of this. I don't want you to let me go, you know, sulk and be all pissy and, you know, create this environment that, you know, we can't smile, we can't talk, and we can't be good. So I want to pull out of it quicker. Like I know I'm triggered. I want help getting through this. I don't want to just sit there.
Yeah.
So hopefully the next time that happens, we'll be able to talk about it sooner and get through it sooner.
Right. So we need to tell each other what we need
Mm-hmm.
before or after, maybe not through, but at some point in time, make sure that we give the other person the strategies to be able to understand the need and walk in that. Carry our responsibility in a relationship to defend the other person. That's what we're doing. We're standing up for them. And we're saying you're worth it. And I want to meet you where you need to be met rather than how I think it should be.
Exactly.
You know, Jamie said she wants me to not let her sulk. Well, there'll be times where it's like I give her, you know, a day or I give her hours and it's like, okay, I want to talk about this. And she gets pissed at me because I want to talk about it. But now she's like, no, I want you to talk to me. I want you to try and bring it out and have the conversation.
And that's growing and stretching, which we both do. You know, that's how you heal from your wounds, really. And just one other thing to point out, like in the communication of getting through this, is not pointing the finger at the other person and saying you this and you that, or you made me feel this way, or you know, it's when you share something about yourself, you need to say, you know, this is how I feel. This is where I'm at. This is what I need from you. Or when that was said, I felt this way. So that you're not pointing the finger because that's accusatory, that's judging, that's condemning, that makes that person feel like they're being attacked. And all that does is put up a wall, and then there's no communication. There's no building a relationship at all at that point.
And that going back to, and I think we're close to wrapping up, the triggers that we talked about, they come from the past. They come from a wound that hasn't healed. And they may look a bunch of different ways. We may think we've got it together, but if something happens today that looks like, even in the slightest way, like something that happened in the past, the emotions immediately come back, the same emotions we had in the past. So when I say something that triggers Jamie, it's not what I said, it's what she felt from the past that came up.
And like I just got thrown right back into the past.
Yes. So that speaks to healing. That speaks to putting on the belt of truth. Knowing who we are, our identity is, I can't shame Jamie if Jamie knows her value. And if I say something that may be interpreted as condescending or shaming, if she knows who she is, she can say, wait a minute, did you just say this? Is this what you meant? Because I know I'm this. And I can't strike that chord if she knows who she is. And the same with my situations. It's like how I feel, they cause some pretty heavy duty, the issues in my past have caused some pretty heavy duty damage. And the reaction is physiological. My body responds. And so, you know, it can just be the habit and learning and remembering that who I am. That really helped me out this last time is, wait a minute, I am strong. I am capable. I am supposed to lead. And I basically just took a deep breath as with what little strength I had and just drew in more, knowing my role and that my role is important. So seek healing, seek understanding, look at the person you're reacting to. If you're dating someone, courting someone right now, and things go awry, ask yourself, is this my trigger? Or is this a red flag? What is this person's character? Is this outside their character? And just seek truth through it, trying to step back with the loaded gun of emotions and say, what's really going on here? And hopefully that will help you.
That's helped me just to be able to take a step back because I'm very emotionally reactive. And just to realize that I don't need to react like that, you know. Just take a step back, take a breath, and then it's hard though because you're not thinking rationally.
Right.
So yeah, it just takes work. You got to fight, but it's worth it.
It is. Well, we love you, and we pray that this helped you or will help you in the future. Shalom.
So.